Good evening. My name is Kelly Russell. I'm the Assistant Director for Community Development. We'd like to welcome you to the Office of Management and Budget's Fiscal 23 Annual Action Plan meeting for April 26. What we'd like to do here is go through a brief presentation. You'll hear from myself and our Program Supervisor, Joshua Rolone, and we're going to walk you through what this action plan entails and what this community meeting entails as well. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this meeting, you're going to learn about we're going to give you an overview of the 4 federal programs that we manage. I'll go into a little bit more detail about that momentarily. We're going to tell you how you can get involved. That's ways for the public to get involved. We'll talk about the anticipated timeline in terms of how we're going to be getting the action plan together. We're going to follow up, talk about how you, the community, can follow up with us if you have questions. And we're also going to look for ways that the community can provide input. And what you're going to do is you're going to hear from our consultant group, Strategy Solutions, Inc., who will be here to present and walk you through that part of the process. Next slide, please. So let's talk about community needs. The purpose of this meeting is to hear about the community needs. So if you have specific questions, we're going to ask you to save those to the end of the presentation, and that's when Strategy Solutions Inc. I'm so used to saying SSI all the time. I don't want people to get confused by me saying SSI and think I'm talking about something else. But Strategy Solutions Inc. will walk with you in terms of any questions you may have. We'd like you to know that the city receives federal funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. These funds go to 4 specific programs with the goal of helping the city with housing and other services for low-income, moderate communities. Excuse me, this is why I need that water. From those, what we plan to do is develop an annual action plan, hence the name, the annual action plan, because it is developed every year. And from that, money is allocated partially based on community input. And that's why we're here tonight, to help get some of the community input. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the 4 federal programs that we fund. First one I'd like to talk about is the Emergency Solutions Grant, better known as ESG. The anticipated funding for 2023 is a little over $1.2 million. There are 5 eligible program components for ESG. That involves emergency shelter, street outreach, rapid rehousing and homeless prevention, and data collection and homeless management information systems, better known as HMIS. These funds typically go to shelters and other organizations that work with the homeless population. Also, these funds are leveraged with funding also from Allegheny County, who also helps us support this program as well. Next slide, please. I'd like to talk about an organization that we fund with ESG funding by the name of Women's Space East. They are one of our top providers, and what Women's Space East does is they operate a family emergency shelter, which helps women and young children with places to stay if they're facing a crisis. Next slide, please. Housing opportunities for persons with AIDS, better known as HOPWA. The anticipated funding for 2023 is a little over $1.4 million. And as the name says, it's to help people living with HIV or living with AIDS. Some of the items covered include financial assistance with rent, mortgage, and utilities, providing permanent housing facilities, and also referrals to essential services. This program is managed by the Jewish Healthcare Foundation. Next slide, please. As we said, with the Jewish Healthcare Foundation, they use HOPWA funds to help fund city residents who have AIDS or HIV find stable and permanent housing. Next slide, please. Home Investment Partnership. The anticipated funding for 2023 for HOME is a little over $2.5 million. HOME helps subsidize developers looking to create affordable housing options for low-income individuals. Some of the examples of the programs that HOME helps fund is a rental gap program for owner and rental occupied housing, and also a forced sale development program. HOME is managed by the Urban Redevelopment Authority, better known as the URA. Next slide, please. An example of a program or project, that was funded by HOME is Melon Orchard out in East Liberty. Home funding helped develop an affordable housing project, and that was one of the great things that home funding was able to do to help this area in East Liberty. Next slide, please. and the big program that everybody knows about, Community Development Block Grant Funding, better known as CDBG. Our anticipated funding for 2023 is a little under, let's just say, $13.6 million. And CDBG helps benefit low and moderate income residents, helps improve slums and urban blight. The funds are used to help grants for nonprofits and also help improve city facility improvements. Next slide. As you can see, there's a list of different programs that a CDBG helps to provide services for. A couple of programs I like to spotlight mainly would be our public service grants, better known as PSG, that involves funding for food banks, youth and senior programs, and then I also like to talk about our neighborhood economic development grants, also better known as NED or NED, and those also help fund community development corporations. At this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to our program supervisor, Joshua Loam, and he will take us to talk about how the community can get involved. Josh?
Thank you, Kelly. Yes, so I appreciate that overview of all of the programs that we'll be covering with next year's annual action plan. The next few slides are just to talk a little bit about our outreach and how people can get involved in informing that annual action plan. So currently we have a survey available until April 30th. We have a QR code on this slide right now that'll take you there. That survey will allow residents to share where they feel, what they feel are their community's greatest needs. It's sort of prioritizing different priorities in the annual action plan. We are also conducting public hearings, public needs hearings like this one that we're at now, and others to allow comments that are outside of the survey. And we'll also be taking public comment through our community development email, which we'll talk a little bit more in a second. We wanted to make sure to describe all of the programs that the annual action plan will cover to help the public understand that these federal funds do have restrictions attached to them. There are some that have specific regulations. For example, as Kelly was mentioning, there's specific restrictions that CDBG grants must benefit low or moderate income people. And ultimately, the annual action plan is sort of fitting within the 5-year consolidated plan that was started or completed 4 years ago. And so going into the timeline for input, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we've had these different public needs meetings that have been ongoing. We're actually on the 4th out of 5 that we will be conducting. The last one is May 2nd, 1 to 2 p.m. That's a virtual meeting. And also, we have our survey that is open until April 30th, so almost shut on that one. For after our sort of this phase of community input, we plan to have a draft of that annual action plan on June 8th, where there will be a comment period for people to take a look at that annual action plan and provide comment from June 8th to July 14th. And we'll be having another formal hearing similar to this one for people to provide input on that draft. We are expecting to have the annual action plan published early fall 2023. And ultimately, the priorities outlined in that plan will be starting to fund those projects October 2023, October of this year. So on here now, on the screen now is our community.development@pittsburghpa.gov email address where people can email their thoughts. Obviously, you can share your thoughts right now in a few minutes. But just if you think of anything else in the next few days after our meeting, please feel free to email there. We have a Engage PGH webpage where people can learn more about the different areas of the process. Keep informed about when we have, for example, that sort of final public hearing on the draft annual action plan. We have a link to the survey there, and like I said, it's really a resource center for everything that has to do with creating that annual action plan. And finally, just wanted to direct everybody also to the website for our office, Community Development, which is on the screen now, that pittsburghpa.gov /OMB/CD. And there you can find previous annual action plans, the consolidated plan that I mentioned earlier, and other opportunities for public participation, and how community groups can apply for these grants in the future. So that is the overview from the city. And I want to now pass it over to Janine McCreary and Chuck Scalise to talk a little bit more about soliciting your input and hearing from you all.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. And welcome to our audience that's physically here, and welcome to our audience who's with us virtually here. So welcome. A beautiful day here in Pittsburgh. It's my pleasure. I work for Strategy Solutions. I'm a consultant. My colleague, Janine McCreary, as well. And we're here today just to help kind of walk the citizens through some ideas in terms of where you feel priority of funding should be. The Pittsburgh has a fine tradition in supporting a number of great nonprofit organizations, community-based organizations, real estate developers to create affordable housing, to create parks and recreation, to create and maintain senior centers, community centers, children's programs, art programs, a whole plethora of activities. And we just wanted to kind of open up a conversation as to what you think is working well, and then if you have some suggestions on where you feel priorities might need to be. In a previous meeting, we learned about somebody very interested in their park in their neighborhood, some infrastructure issues. The wall was deteriorating and needed to be rebuilt, so we made note of that. She was concerned about safety of the children, so she wanted to have some signs, so we made note of that. We learned about a very successful daycare program for adults, so that the adults could be supervised, elderly parents and adults could be cared for during the day while the families are working, and some of the nutrition programs that were happening there. So we learned a lot that day. So tonight we're hoping to learn a little bit about what's going in your community that's working well. And again, if there's any thoughts that you have in terms of where maybe there's some gaps in service. Janine, anything else before we get started?
Thank you, Chuck. So to our visitors here joined with us in the chamber, would you like to have any comments before we open it up to our virtual guests? All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. If you change your mind, or you know where to, just come right on up with that. So with that, we want to turn it over to our virtual guests who are on with us, and if anybody would want to unmute themselves and provide some thoughts or inputs.
We welcome them to do that. So if you would, please, you may state your name if you so choose, and any organization or neighborhood that you are calling on behalf. And at this time, we will open it up to our virtual guests. Do we have anyone at this time who would like to offer some comments or give us some suggestions?
Yes, hi.
Good afternoon or evening. If you could unmute yourself again, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. My name is Rasha Pernis. I'm with Urban Strategies, Inc. I am a nonprofit organization. We are a family support service. We service residents that live in the Larmer neighborhood inside of McCormick Barron properties. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we service coordinate and we work with community partners to make sure we highlight and connect residents that are in need to supported programs and services that can help them thrive in their residence. And we just did a listening session and with the neighbors of a particular building. And a lot of their feedback was the things that they can change. There's a nice sized park that sits in the middle of the properties. That's the City of Pittsburgh Park. And a lot of their concerns is for safety. If we could, one of the needs I see that they need to have more Pittsburgh police or more of park rangers patrolling at different hours other than the proposed hours. I just found out today that they do have rangers patrol, but their hours are different from the times where the activity is. Okay. So that's one need. Another need is for more programming in that neighborhood. There's a lot of teenagers that are loitering around those buildings, and I've engaged a few of them, and a lot of them could benefit for some programming or some activities, some things that could go on in the community. So, and then I talked to a lot of parents. Some of their other concerns is childcare. There's not enough childcare programs to give our low-income residents opportunities to go and work. So those are some needs from a report or from a listening session where we took down data from residents about some concerns or wishes that they could change in the Larmer neighborhood.
Well, that's very good input, and feel free to, if you'd like to submit your written, it sounds like you've done a very deep dive into your neighborhood, so feel free to submit your neighbors' comments. I know that we've taken notes here from tonight, but if you have additional information, please email those in or go to the website and submit those as well, so that we have a full scope of what the neighbors are telling us then. So it helps with our community engagement.
Thank you, Rashi. Do we have any other participants who would like to offer comment at this time? Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, my name is Eustace Ukwu. I'm an attorney and economic developer. I wanted to know whether part of the CDBG funds could be earmarked for minority entrepreneurs that are involved in job creation in minority neighborhoods. That would be roughly equivalent to, at the minimum, the minority ratio of minorities in the Pittsburgh population, or at least, to follow the guidelines of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of the city that reviews minority and women's business participation plans for contracting in the city. I think that would be something that can give some boost to minority employment, especially employment of the young minority youths that are in search of work.
Well, thank you, and there's a lot of information that you just gave us. So if I can maybe summarize, you're thinking supporting micro loans or grants to help support and maintain small entrepreneurial organizations, businesses, particularly those who are founded by minority. Then I heard a theme about maybe job training or job opportunities for minority youth to also work within the confines of a business in particular neighborhoods. And was there a third one that I missed? I'm just trying to...
Exactly, but not necessarily microloans. The loan sizes will, correspond with what makes sense depending on the business proposals or propositions that are put on the table.
Okay.
And at least such proposals can be evaluated on a competitive basis. But I think the main driver should be potential for job creation and sustainability.
Okay, great. Was there also maybe a need for any type of business support or help with developing a business plan as part of the conversation?
Yes, of course, that's part of it, technical assistance with financing, the business planning itself, and after the businesses are established, providing them with technical assistance so that they can be able to have some strong professional service support while the businesses are in the process of getting off the ground.
Okay, all makes sense. Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments.
Do we have any
Thank
other
you.
comments? Thank you, Attorney Yuko. Do we have any other comments at this time? Any other of our guests would like to make comment?
Hello. This is Irene Sparks. How's everyone doing this evening?
Hi, Irene. Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for jumping
Good
in.
evening. Yes. I have been a previous Llama resident years ago, but I still work in the community on several different aspects. One thing that I see that the community needs, besides parking, as we are having a lot of redevelopment, is making sure that our current residents are able to purchase homes. That has been one of the highlights that a lot of residents have said, is how developers will come into the neighborhood and buy property and then rent it out
I
to
see.
where it's actually taking money out of the community. So we need to be able to have some type of infrastructure in place to where the community can still purchase their own homes, and keep the money inside of the neighborhood, if that makes sense.
It does. Irene, forgive me, I missed. What neighborhoods are you speaking about particularly?
Larmer right now.
Okay, thank you. You probably mentioned that. I just missed it, so thank you.
No, it's okay. Yes.
So you're thinking in terms of financial support to support home ownership programs, which might include
Most
like
most definitely.
down payment assistance, pre-purchase counseling,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
some post-purchase counseling, of course, to assure that the family is still being successful.
Yes. Even if we were able to allot certain parcels available to the community residents instead of just having a developer take it over, and have them at market rate to where that prices out a lot of our current resident base. And I completely understand that in order to make the economy go, you do have to have market rate units. Everything cannot be low income, but just also keeping in mind that most of our residents in that neighborhood are below income. So by having developers come in, you are pushing out the current resident base there.
Yeah, very, very good point. And I think that we've learned that in terms of workforce development and keeping our workforce close to where businesses are, having options for everybody becomes, important for a good and strong community. Irene, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other comments? We welcome anyone to leave a comment or a question, or if we have any of our participants whose organization has been the recipient of any type of grant funding, if you could share your success or failure with us.
We call them concerns.
Thank you. Okay. Right. So if we don't have any other questions, again, anyone else have any other comments or questions?
And again, and we'll repeat maybe the slide that shows the
Survey.
the survey,
Yes.
as well as the where to send comments in, because you may think of something, or you may go back to your family, friends, or your organization and come up with some ideas. And again, if you represent an organization that has a business plan that you'd like to share, we're very happy to receive those. If you are part of a neighborhood group and want to share your concerns, very happy to receive those as well.
So
Are
we'd
you
like,
able to drop the link or your email into the chat? So I'm not sure if that has been done already.
would you please repeat that? I believe that was Irene.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We do have a business plan, actually a community development plan that we could share as well.
Excellent. We'll do that. And we also want to encourage everyone.
Well, that's
Oh, we do not have a chat.
We do have a plan to send a follow-up email that will have all of these links. So since you registered, everyone who registered for this is going to get a follow-up email that has the links that we've mentioned. So it will be in there.
Thank you. The one thing we want to encourage, strongly encourage, is for everyone to please complete the survey. That is very important, that you would complete that survey and share that link with all of your friends, family, anyone in the neighborhood. That information is very important and really does weigh heavily on the decisions that are made for the city of Pittsburgh. Also on Tuesday, May 2nd, between 1 and 2 p.m., we will be having another virtual meeting. And again, we encourage everyone to please remind others to participate. If you'd like to participate again, we welcome you to do that as well. Oh, we have a raised hand.
oh,
Please unmute yourself. Thank you for your participation.
thank you. It takes a village.
I was just going to make sure I understood, like, this survey, because I see the barcode, but I'm currently on my phone, so I'm unable to access the barcode. But are you going to send the email with the link to the survey as well?
Yes, sir. So all participants that register tonight will receive an email that will include the links so that you can access some additional information, as well as being able to submit comments in case you're feeling shy tonight or otherwise come up with additional information.
Yes.
Is it possible to send the entire PowerPoint presentation in the email?
The PowerPoint
It's not that
presentation.
long.
Yes,
Yes.
we can share that as well.
Yeah, so we'll send out the slide deck from tonight's presentation as well.
Sure.
Thank you for the question. Absolutely.
And I see that we have several
What?
neighborhood organizations that have joined. And again, I thank all of you. And I would encourage you to please share the information with your membership. And please take the lead in encouraging them to complete that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Janine. And again, it's perfectly fine to mention a success or something that you're particularly happy with. That's really good feedback to give to the city to make sure that they're understanding that. And again, if there's opportunities for improvement, we're always welcome for that too. But a little praise doesn't hurt either. So feel free to share those success stories so that we could repeat those.
And at this time, we will turn this back over to the city of Pittsburgh. And
We're-
again,
we're-
we thank all of
We're
you.
going to give one more to anybody in the virtual audience if you want to share a comment or two. We've got plenty of time. You're welcome to unmute yourself and share some comments. We'll wait a few seconds here. I'm not seeing anybody. So with that, we'll turn it back over to our hosts at the City of Erie. But I do want to thank this City of Pittsburgh. I'm sorry, Freudian slip here. I forget where I'm at these days. I do want to thank the City of Pittsburgh for being, in my opinion, a great job in their organization of their community input process, their thoughtfulness and their willingness to listen. So often we don't have ears. People don't have ears to listen, and we're appreciative and very impressed with how well the City of Pittsburgh does that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Yes, so I'm going to echo everybody else's appreciation for everybody coming here, especially in person, to share your feedback. We will be, like Amber said, we're going to be following up with an email with these different links. One thing that I want to highlight along with our email, the presentation, and the survey is we will have a link to the Engage PGH page, which is a great way for people to sort of after the draft is in place, find out about our follow-up meetings, or at least our follow-up meeting discussing that draft annual action plan. But otherwise, thank you all for your input and your time. Yes.
I do see one person who just joined us, and so that gentleman would like to say hello or give us some input. I didn't want to leave the meeting when you're just joining us. If that's okay.
It sounds like there's somebody new who just signed on. Yeah, if you have do you have any thoughts?
I apologize. I was going to join earlier, but I couldn't. I didn't have Wi-Fi.
That's okay. You're on now, and we're here to listen.
Okay. Well, I need to look at the presentation again.
Okay. So what I would do is, since you're registered, since you've logged in, registered, you'll be receiving an email, and that email will include the slides from tonight's presentation, and then a link to a survey that we would encourage you and your colleagues to take and share, and then several ways in order to provide some written comments and some thoughts. And again, we're looking for success stories on what you think is working well in your neighborhood, and then suggestions for some opportunities where your neighborhood or your organization may see some needs. And this helps the City of Pittsburgh kind of identify where to put their funding priorities. Unfortunately, there's always more need than there are resources, so this process becomes super important to make sure that they're focusing on what is needed in the Pittsburgh community and the Pittsburgh neighborhoods.
Okay.
So we thank you for that. So with that, I think I'll give 15 seconds to anybody else. And again, it's the conversation continues on with after you receive your email. Please feel free to respond favorably or unfavorably, or respond with some ideas. And we look forward to hearing from you. Anybody else from here? You're still good? Okay, great. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we'll end our meeting tonight. Oh, I'm not going to make it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time today and your interest.